The pen felt like lead in Lorelei Harrington's hand as she stared at the stark black and white document on her mother's mahogany desk. "Sign it or watch the family empire crumble under the weight of your choices, Eleanor Harrington," said her voice as sharp as the skyscrapers outside the penthouse window overlooking Manhattan. Lorelei's heart pounded, memories of Charlotte flooding her mind in that instant. The woman she had secretly married 2 years ago in a quiet ceremony in Vermont, the woman her mother had denied and tried to erase from their lives. Eleanor leaned forward, her perfectly manicured nails tapping the paper titled Commitment to Family Values and Traditional Partnerships. "This is not a suggestion, Lorelei. The board is watching, the investors are watching, and that $50 million merger with Vanguard Media hinges on our image as a stable conservative dynasty. One whisper of your little indiscretion, and the deal dies along with your inheritance and my legacy." Lorelei swallowed hard, the weight of 30 years of expectations crushing her chest. She was 28, the heir apparent to Harrington Media Group, a sprawling empire of digital advertising and entertainment outlets built on old money and even older morals. Coming out as lesbian would shatter it all, or so her mother had drilled into her since the day Eleanor discovered the truth. "You think this is easy for me," Eleanor continued, her tone softening just enough to twist the knife. "I raised you to be strong, to lead, not to throw it away on some phase." Charlotte was a phase, right, a distraction from the real world. "Sign this pledge and we move forward. No more questions, no more risks." Lorelei closed her eyes for a second, seeing Charlotte's face the night they exchanged vows under a canopy of stars, promising forever no matter what. That promise now felt like a fragile thread about to snap. With a deep breath, she pressed the pen to the line and signed her name in careful script. The ink dried instantly, sealing her fate. Eleanor smiled triumphantly, but Lorelei felt only emptiness, a hollow victory that cost her soul. Later that afternoon, alone in her corner office on the 55th floor, Lorelei replayed the morning in her head. The family had always been this way, rigid, unyielding. Her father had died when she was 12, leaving Eleanor to run the company with iron fists and ironclad rules. No scandals, no deviations. When Lorelei had first met Charlotte at a charity gala in her senior year at Columbia University, it had felt like breathing fresh air for the first time. Charlotte Evans, a 21-year-old photography major with a sharp wit and warmer heart, had approached her at the silent auction table, commenting on a photograph of the Brooklyn Bridge at dawn. Their conversation flowed effortlessly from art to ambitions to late-night dreams. Within weeks they were inseparable, stealing moments between classes and internships. Lorelei remembered the first time she realized she was in love. It was during a rainy weekend in Charlotte's tiny off-campus apartment. They had cooked pasta, burned it, and laughed until tears streamed down their faces. Charlotte had reached across the table, wiped a smudge of sauce from Lorelei's cheek, and said softly, "You make everything brighter." That night they kissed for the first time, tentative and full of wonder. No fireworks, just a quiet certainty that this was right. They kept it hidden at first, Lorelei terrified of her mother's reaction. But love has a way of demanding truth. On their 1-year anniversary, they drove to Vermont, where same-sex marriage was legal, and exchanged simple gold bands in a small courthouse with only 2 witnesses. It was the happiest day of Lorelei's life until reality crashed in 6 months later. Eleanor had hired a private investigator after noticing Lorelei's unexplained absences. The confrontation in this very penthouse had been brutal. "How dare you lie to me," Eleanor had screamed, waving photos of Lorelei and Charlotte holding hands in Central Park. "This ends now, or you are out of the will, out of the company, out of this family." Lorelei had begged for understanding, but Eleanor was immovable. "Charlotte is not welcome here ever. You will end it or lose everything I built for you." Torn between love and duty, Lorelei had met Charlotte that night in a quiet cafe, tears flowing as she explained the ultimatum. Charlotte had listened, her face pale but steady. "I won't force you to choose," she said, "but if you walk away, know that I will always love you." They parted with heavy hearts, Lorelei returning to her mother's world, Charlotte disappearing into her own rising career as a freelance photographer turned successful art director. Now 2 years later, with the pledge signed, Lorelei sat at her desk staring at the gold band she still wore on a chain around her neck, hidden under her blouse. The merger loomed large, a deal that would expand Harrington Media into new markets, but required the family to project perfect traditional values. She had sacrificed her marriage for this, but the cost gnawed at her daily. Little did she know the red carpet event in 2 weeks would unravel everything she thought she had buried. The days leading up to the signing had been a blur of meetings and media prep. Lorelai threw herself into work attending strategy sessions where board members praised her for stepping up. "You are the future," one executive said, clapping her on the back. "Your mother is proud." But in quiet moments, Lorelai questioned if pride was worth the silence in her heart. She avoided calls from old friends who knew about Charlotte, dodging questions about her personal life. The pledge sat in a safe in Eleanor's office, a constant reminder of the line she had crossed. Meanwhile, Charlotte had not vanished completely. She had built her own path, launching a boutique creative agency that specialized in inclusive campaigns, ironically competing in the same circles. Lorelai had seen her name in industry newsletters but never reached out, the wound too fresh. Yet on the night before the big event, Lorelai found herself driving past Charlotte's old apartment building, memories flooding back. She pulled over, gripped the steering wheel, and whispered, "Why did I let you go?" The answer was the same as always: family, legacy, duty, survival. But deep down she wondered if survival without love was truly living. The morning of the merger announcement dawned bright over Manhattan, but Lorelai's mood was anything but. She stood in front of her full-length mirror, adjusting the tailored navy suit that screamed professional air. The red carpet event was set for evening at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, a lavish gala to celebrate the Vanguard deal. $50 million on the line, and her signature on that pledge had been the key to unlocking it. Eleanor had called earlier, her voice triumphant. "You did the right thing, darling. Tonight the world sees the Harringtons as unbreakable." Lorelai forced a smile into the phone, but her reflection showed the truth: hollow eyes. She arrived at the office early, reviewing the contract one last time. The terms were clear: Harrington Media would merge divisions with Vanguard, creating a media giant. In return, the investors demanded a public image of stability, no controversies. Eleanor's team had spun the narrative perfectly, portraying Lorelai as the dedicated single daughter focused on business. No mention of the pledge, of course, that was family business. As she signed the final internal approvals, Lorelai felt a pang of guilt. This deal was her future, but it came at the price of denying who she was. Across town in a sleek Soho loft, Charlotte Evans paced her studio, reviewing the invitation she had received as a key creative partner on the Vanguard side. The email had been a shock. Vanguard wanted her agency to handle the post-merger branding, and the gala was mandatory. She stared at the gold band on her finger, the one she had never removed. 2 years since Lorelai had walked away, and the pain still lingered like a bruise that never healed. Charlotte had thrown herself into work, building her agency from scratch, landing clients who valued authenticity over tradition. Yet every success felt incomplete without Lorelai to share it with. She remembered the breakup night vividly. Lorelai had sat across from her in that dimly lit cafe, hands trembling. "My mother knows everything," she had said. "She gave me an ultimatum: the company or us. I can't lose my family, Charlotte, not after everything." Charlotte had wanted to fight, to argue that love was stronger, but she saw the fear in Lorelai's eyes. "Then go," she had replied, voice steady despite the breaking inside. "But don't expect me to wait forever." They had hugged one last time, Charlotte whispering, "I will always be your wife, even if the world doesn't know." Lorelai had left without looking back, and Charlotte had cried alone for hours. Now Charlotte wondered if fate was playing a cruel joke. Attending the gala meant seeing Lorelai again publicly. She chose a striking red dress that hugged her figure and slipped on the band openly for the first time in public. If tonight was the reckoning, so be it. She would stand tall as the wife Lorelai had been forced to deny. Back at Harrington headquarters, Eleanor pulled Lorelai aside in the executive suite. "Remember your role tonight," she said, eyes narrowing. "Smile, wave, sign the papers, and keep any personal matters buried. The pledge you signed is your shield." Lorelai nodded, but inside rebellion stirred. The price of that signature had been sleepless nights and a constant ache. She had traded her happiness for the family's approval, but was it worth the isolation? Colleagues praised her dedication, unaware of the turmoil. One even joked, "You'll make a perfect CEO, no distractions." The word stung like salt in a wound. As the afternoon wore on, Lorelai received a text from an unknown number. It was Charlotte. "I will be there tonight as part of the Vanguard team. We need to talk." Lorelai's hand shook as she read it. Talk about what? The marriage, the pledge, the years of silence. She deleted the message, but the words burned in her mind. The moral dilemma raged. Had she betrayed Charlotte by signing, or protected the hundreds of employees who relied on the company? Family pressure had always been the chain, but now it felt like a noose. Eleanor sensed the distraction during the final briefing. "You look pale," she observed. Is something wrong? Lorelai shook her head. Just nerves about the deal. But it was more the fear of facing the woman she still loved while standing on the stage of denial. The drive to the museum was silent. Lorelai staring out the window at the city she called home yet felt so alien in. Social prejudice loomed large in these circles, whispers about diversity being a buzzword not a reality. She had heard board members joke about keeping things traditional. Signing the pledge had aligned her with that world, but her heart rebelled. Charlotte arrived early, mingling with Vanguard executives, her confidence masking the nervous flutter. When Lorelai stepped onto the red carpet alone in her suit, cameras flashing, Charlotte felt the world tilt. Their eyes met across the crowd and time stopped. The woman who had signed away their love now stood inches from the spotlight Charlotte had fought to reclaim. She stepped forward, ignoring protocol, and took her place beside Lorelai on the carpet. The unexpected move sent murmurs through the crowd. Lorelai froze, her mother's words echoing, but Charlotte's presence was a lifeline and a storm. The flashbulbs exploded like fireworks as Charlotte positioned herself shoulder to shoulder with Lorelai on the red carpet. Whispers rippled through the gathered elite. What is Charlotte Evans doing here with her? Lorelai felt her pulse race, the pledge she had signed burning in her memory like a brand. This is not happening, she thought, but Charlotte's calm voice cut through. I am here as your partner in every sense. The words hung heavy with double meaning: the secret marriage, the denied love, the forced separation, all crashing into this public moment. Eleanor arrived moments later, her face a mask of controlled fury as she spotted the scene from the limousine. She marched over, gripping Lorelai's arm. What is the meaning of this? She hissed under her breath. Get her away before the cameras catch more. But Lorelai stood rooted, the years of inner conflict boiling over. Mother, this is Charlotte, my wife. The admission slipped out raw and unfiltered, shocking even herself. Eleanor recoiled as if slapped. You signed the pledge, you chose this family. The confrontation drew more attention, journalists hovering nearby sensing blood in the water. Charlotte faced Eleanor directly, her voice steady but laced with pain. You forced her to deny me, to sign away her happiness for your empire. But love doesn't vanish because of a piece of paper. I have built my life without your approval, and tonight I stand here not as a secret but as an equal. The moral weight of the moment pressed on Lorelai. She had betrayed Charlotte by yielding to family pressure, trading their vows for business security. Yet standing here with Charlotte beside her felt like the first honest breath in years. Employees from both companies watched the drama unfold, their faces a mix of shock and quiet support. Inside the museum, the gala proceeded with forced elegance, but the tension followed them. At the signing table, Lorelai picked up the pen for the $50 million contract, her hand steady for the first time that night. Charlotte stood beside her as the official creative consultant, her presence a silent challenge to the pledge. Eleanor watched from the front row, her eyes promising consequences. As the ink flowed, Lorelai realized the true cost. She had paid with her authenticity, her joy, her marriage. The deal secured the legacy, but at what price to her soul? Later, in a private antechamber, the real confrontation erupted. Eleanor cornered Lorelai while Charlotte waited outside. You are throwing away everything I sacrificed for you. The board will revolt, the investors will pull out. Is she worth losing it all? Lorelai met her mother's gaze, years of suppressed anger surfacing. You made me choose between family and love, but love was never the enemy. You were. The betrayal cut deep. Eleanor had manipulated her with guilt and threats, now the tables turned. Charlotte entered then, her eyes filled with quiet strength. We don't have to hide anymore. The choice is yours, Lorelai, but I won't be denied again. The evening unfolded with speeches and toasts, but Lorelai's mind raced through the trade-offs. She had awakened to the truth that hiding had cost her more than any deal could restore. Colleagues approached with cautious congratulations, some offering subtle nods of understanding, others averting eyes in discomfort. Social prejudice lingered in their polite smiles, but Charlotte's hand brushing hers under the table gave courage. The night ended with them leaving together, cameras capturing the image that would dominate headlines, the denied wife now unapologetically present. In the weeks following the gala, Lorelai's life fractured along fault lines she had long ignored. The board called an emergency meeting demanding explanations for the public display. Eleanor sat at the head of the table, her disappointment a palpable force. You signed the pledge yet paraded that woman as your wife. This jeopardizes everything. Lorelai defended herself, voice firm. The pledge was signed under duress. It doesn't define who I am. The room erupted in debate, some members citing tradition, others quietly supporting change. The moral dilemma deepened, Lorelai weighing loyalty to blood against loyalty to self. Charlotte moved into Lorelai's apartment, the reunion bittersweet. They talked late into nights, unpacking the pain of separation. "You chose them over us," Charlotte said one evening, her voice soft but hurt. "I waited hoping you would fight, but you didn't." Lorelai held her hand, tears falling. "I was scared of losing the only family I knew. The price was losing you, and that nearly broke me." Their conversations revealed the depth of damage family pressure had inflicted. Charlotte had faced her own battles, building her agency amid whispers of being the other woman. Yet she had never stopped loving Lorelai, the bond unbroken despite the denial. Eleanor refused to yield, launching a quiet campaign to undermine the merger by leaking concerns about stability. Investors' wavered, calls flooded Lorelai's phone questioning her commitment. The social prejudice she had feared manifested in tabloid headlines: "Harrington heiress defies family values for lesbian love." Friends distanced themselves, some citing business conflicts, others genuine discomfort. Lorelai felt the isolation keenly, but Charlotte's presence anchored her. They attended therapy together, unpacking the trauma of forced choices and societal judgment. One evening, a heated argument erupted when Eleanor showed up unannounced at the apartment. "You are destroying what your father built," she accused, pointing at Charlotte. "This is not the daughter I raised." Lorelai stepped between them. "The daughter you raised was afraid to live authentically. I am choosing me now." The confrontation left Eleanor storming out, but not before delivering a final blow. "You will regret this when the company falls." The words lingered, Lorelai questioning if awakening to her truth meant sacrificing the legacy she had fought to protect. As months passed, the merger stabilized despite the drama, Vanguard executives praising the fresh, inclusive direction Charlotte brought. Lorelai thrived in her role, but the internal cost remained. Sleepless nights replaying decisions, the betrayal she felt toward Charlotte, the guilt toward her mother. Yet each day with Charlotte brought healing, small moments of laughter, shared meals, walks in Central Park, where they had first held hands openly. The price of defiance was high, lost relationships, strained alliances, but the reward was freedom. The annual Harrington Gala 6 months later became the ultimate test. Lorelai stood backstage preparing her speech as new co-CEO alongside Charlotte as creative director. Eleanor had boycotted the event, sending a terse letter citing irreconcilable differences. The room buzzed with industry leaders, some supportive, others skeptical. Lorelai stepped to the podium, her voice steady. "Tonight we celebrate not just business but authenticity. I once signed a pledge that denied my heart, but I choose love over fear." The applause was mixed but genuine from those who mattered. Charlotte joined her on stage, their hands linked publicly for the first time at a company event. Whispers turned to conversations as employees approached, sharing their own stories of hidden identities. The social barriers cracked one by one. Yet the inner conflict lingered, Lorelai reflecting on the journey from forced signature to open embrace. She had paid with family rifts, professional risks, and years of pain, but gained a life true to herself. In a quiet corner after the speeches, Eleanor appeared unexpectedly, her face lined with exhaustion. "I came to see if this was worth it," she said. Lorelai met her eyes. "It was. The love I share with Charlotte is the legacy that matters." Eleanor nodded slowly, the first crack in her armor. "Perhaps I was wrong to demand such a price." The moment was not full reconciliation but a beginning of dialogue. As the night ended, Lorelai and Charlotte slipped away to their favorite rooftop overlooking the city. The stars above mirrored the hope in their hearts. They had faced betrayal, trade-offs, and awakening, now standing stronger together. The following year brought further challenges and triumphs. Lorelai and Charlotte expanded the company with campaigns celebrating diversity, drawing new talent and clients. Eleanor gradually softened, attending family dinners though tension remained. The pledge lay forgotten in a drawer, a relic of past fear. Yet scars lingered, Lorelai sometimes waking from nightmares of loss, Charlotte reassuring her with quiet strength. One crisp autumn day they returned to Vermont, renewing their vows in the same courthouse, this time with friends and a reconciled Eleanor in attendance. The ceremony was simple, heartfelt, tears flowing as they exchanged new rings symbolizing resilience. The journey had taught them that choices carried prices, but authenticity was priceless. Looking back, Lorelai marveled at the path from that signing desk to this moment. She had confronted inner demons, family ultimatums, and societal prejudice, emerging with deeper wisdom. Charlotte had stood unwavering, her love the constant through betrayal and doubt. Their story became a quiet beacon for others navigating similar waters. As they stood on the courthouse steps, hands intertwined, the city lights of their life ahead sparkled with possibility. The drama had forged them unbreakable, the psychological battles won, the social prejudices challenged. Yet one question lingered for all who heard their tale. Was Lorelai right to finally defy the pledge and embrace her love for Charlotte, or did the cost to her family legacy prove that some traditions should never be broken?